Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today. I'm excited from Padawan to Pro, Amazon Ads panel for the modern advertiser. And I know what you guys are thinking. We are a little bit early. It's May the 1st and not May the 4th. But May the 4th is on Sunday, so we prefer to do these on a Thursday. So we're excited that all you guys can join. Not to mention, I'm not sure how many of you guys are going to show up on a Sunday. So I think Thursday is a lot better today. So today and moving forward for at least the next hour, we're going to pretend it's May the 4th. This way we can do all our Star Wars puns and everybody can continue rocking their Star Wars gear. On that note, I'm just going to give everybody a minute to kind of funnel in, and while they're funneling in, we'll do some quick introductions. So I'm going to kick it off. We have a great panel here today. And to kick it off, Nava, can you introduce yourself?
Howdy, everybody. My name is Nava. I'm the evangelist over at Optimizer, and I am here with my dark side and light side Amazon tactics. So be prepared for lots of hidden and technical secrets, along with hopefully some really creative strategies.
We're excited. And Nava, what's your superpower if you have one that you could share today?
That is an interesting. I was not ready to go into superpowers. Maybe kindness.
Ooh.
Like I operate from a standpoint of kindness, and I find that just by operating from a standpoint of kindness, a lot of doors open and you're able to work with a lot of different people, and you're able to do well by doing good. So we'll say kindness.
I like that. Kill them with kindness. Watch out.
And real quick, I forgot to mention, the company Optimizer I work for is a software that helps you manage Amazon and Google, Microsoft, and paid social. So if you need help, amazing. If you need a software help, that's amazing too. But otherwise, just super excited to share tactics from the Amazon side and everybody else.
I'm excited. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. And next we have Alexi Bell. Alexi, can you do a quick introduction?
Yeah, of course. My name's Alexi. I'm the Senior Account Director at AO2 Management. So I oversee our Amazon department of brand managers, assistant, SEO, and designers. And then AO2 Management is a Amazon first omni-channel partner that will help and manage your e-commerce business, starting with Amazon and going through Walmart and Google and Meta and all the other facets of e-commerce.
Awesome. And Alexi, what's your superpower?
I would say my superpower, and what I lead out with is just being honest with like when things are going well or things are not going well, like just being transparent and honest with our clients and with the team, so that we can collectively make the best decision. Because I feel like there's a lot of uneasiness, especially right now with what's going on, with the tariffs and everything, and just trying to be honest with our clients and meet them where they are and do what's best for the collective.
Honesty is the best policy, and I think that is great for anybody, account management, agency, software. Nobody wants to work with dishonest people, so that's an awesome superpower. And last but not least, I got Abe Obi-Wan Komali here with us. Abe, can you do a quick introduction?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I don't have any relics like Nava does, but I do have a good background. Hi, everybody. My name is Abe Shamali. I am the founder at XP Strategy. We are an Amazon-focused, but of course, we handle all the marketplaces. We are a marketing and PPC agency. We work with brands to help them scale. We work with brands to help them become more efficient. And we've been doing it for quite a while, since about 2018, which puts us in the space for quite a while at this point, hence the beard.
And Abe, what's your superpower?
So my superpower is definitely taking complex situations and breaking them into an understandable bunch of pieces. And once I find that no matter what the situation is, once we break things down properly, the way to go becomes much clearer.
And just like Obi-Wan, you were guiding and teaching and breaking that down to be a good teacher. So I like to hear that. And I'm your host here today. I'm Will Hare. I'm the co-founder of Bellavix. Bellavix is a marketplace management agency. We help brands scale on platforms like Amazon and Walmart, and we do the full channel management. And my superpower is probably around analytics. I'm a very analytical person, having come up in the advertising world So I like to look at data, similar to Abe over here, break it down into its simplest form, and then figure out how we can build a strategy around it. And this, everybody today, is your panel, and I'm excited to dive in. So on that note, let's talk about the galaxy of ad challenges. So the empire isn't the only threat. What forces are creating the biggest challenges for advertisers today? And with that being said, for our panelists, what's the Death Star of brands right now? The single biggest threat to advertising performance?
Who do you
Hmm.
want to answer first? Oh,
Anybody who they want. If not, I could call on people too. I don't mind.
Oh boy, I'll take a crack at this. From what we see, the biggest challenge for the brands that come to us is rising CPCs. It's really as simple as that. Um, Over time, Amazon runs their system and runs their algorithm in a way that generally moves and nudges costs upwards. And if you don't have a good handle on it, the things you're doing yesterday will sort of work the same but cost you more. And enough months and enough weeks and enough years of that happening, all of a sudden you feel like the water is up to here. And internally, we have a good handle on that, but it is the thing that I see challenging for a lot of brands.
That's a really good one, Abe. And we know operating on Amazon, regardless, it's expensive. So controlling your CPCs is definitely a big challenge. And before I let Alexia Nava kind of jump in, I do want to call out anybody listening or audience today. You can drop your questions into the Q&A section, and I'll get to them as we have breaks in between some of these questions. But Nava, did you have something to add to this?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Rising CPCs, I fully agree, Abe. It is 100% one of those dark side moments. But just like Palpatine was this insidious growth that in within the Republic that turned it into the Empire, and he just is the villain that will never go away. Rising CPCs are often a symptom of a larger problem, whether that's the amount of competition, whether that's due to changes in policies, whether that's due to a whole like the tariffs that were referenced earlier. So there's a whole number of reasons why CPCs can be going up. I would put it out there that one of the dark side moments and kind of Death Star obliterating Alderaan moments is really the transparency of data. So one of the things I'm very grateful for with Amazon is with the Amazon Marketing Cloud is that they're doing a lot of good to help shore up that lack of transparency, but it's not perfect yet. There's still a lot of room for uh, the reporting to grow, for the translation of metrics, for people getting used to the lag of kind of settling out conversions. So I think one of the real dark side moments is we are currently in the AI era, and the AI era tends to ask us to relinquish our control, but we also know that we need that transparency into what's going on. So I think that's if we're to wrestle with one area, yes, I 100% agree the CPCs rising is an issue, but I think CPCs rise due to sometimes human error and technical mechanics. And the technical mechanics of lack of transparency might be more at play than even the human error.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of pieces that move up against each other. When I mentioned the CPCs, it is generally the observable thing that needs to get dug into. So when you mentioned the fact that there are a lot of data points, that's definitely true. But those CPCs are the observable thing. When we look at a trend of every other metric staying the same for conversions and for click-through rates and for everything else, and we see the one metric that's nudging upwards is that CPC, that immediately begins to be the focal point for where we investigate. So we'll look at, hey, maybe a thing doesn't convert as well as it used to, or maybe a thing that was an acceptable conversion rate with one CPC is no longer an acceptable conversion rate with a different CPC. And you start to reevaluate the thing that was okay before.
For sure. And that's where it can be really helpful to even set up automatic rules just to kind of check and make sure, am I spending appropriately or how I intend? But sorry, Alexia, I think I cut you off.
No, you're good. I would just say in line too with what you all were saying and like where the CPC is rising and you're having to pay double of what you were paying before. Like we're seeing people, with the partners brands that we work with having to pay more money to land in the same placements, but
Mm.
seeing that organic, the like amount of organic search like that you're getting and keeping that tacos low has just continued to shrink and people are having to pay more to get in those top placements. And so it's trying to ride that line of yeah, I could increase these bids to be top of search, but I'm getting enough sales. And if I do double down, I'm not going to be profitable anymore. So like, where do I pick where do I pick that battle and what's going too far? So just kind of in line with what you guys were saying, but that's the biggest trend I'm seeing is that the organic search, the organic sales are not as strong as they previously were with the rise of, and then you're seeing it with the rise of tacos and the rise of the CPCs.
That's a really good point, Alexi. And yeah, we're seeing across the board. You can even see it as a consumer who's shopping on Amazon, where it's like the first two rows are now pretty much ad spaces on top of the sponsored brand. So even above the fold, it's like it's really become a pay to play platform. And I think you guys hit some really good points here, CPC, the transparency and data, and the how necessary advertising is for brands who want to get ahead or have a presence on Amazon. So these are some really good points. My next question, and I'm going to start with Nava on this one because I think this is right up your alley. But how do you balance between, and I'll let you define light side and dark side, but how do you balance between the light side with the dark side as you build a healthy account?
So the reason why this is I'm chuckling is in our preparation for the webinar, Will and I had two very different ways of looking at light side, dark side. Will was positioning this in what I think we all should think about it, which is maybe dark side is top of funnel and light side is bottom of funnel because it's just very easy to understand metrics. I was defining it as like the ethics of the tactics you use. So we're going to avoid the ethics of tactics because I don't want to make anyone feel iffy about what they're doing. But I do think one of the sleeper ad types that not enough people are paying attention to is the sponsored display and sponsored video.
Mm.
Amazon has invested a ton of energy into making that a really useful ad type. They've even gone as far as reaching out to folks that are non-Amazon sellers to try to bring them on board to really bolster that ad offering. It's where a lot of the multi-touch attribution is really coming into play. So if I were to pick on one ad type that maybe doesn't get the attention because it's not the point of sale, but it's definitely an assist. It's kind of the Han Solo to the Skywalker clan.
Mhm.
It would definitely be the sponsored display, sponsored video, especially knowing that the product leads on that team are super hungry for feedback and beta testers. Like the easiest way to make a ton of money on Amazon is to get to be part of those beta testing groups or to work with an amazing agency like the amazing folks on this call that get to be part of those conversations to help shape the product. So that's my I know we like dark side, light side, but that's my light side moment is the sponsored display, sponsored video.
I like that. I like the tie. I like your analogy with Han Solo. I can totally see that. How about you, Alexi or Abe? Anything to add? How do you guys look at light side or dark side tactics? And feel free to be as creative as you like.
Boy, you want to take this one, Alexi, first?
No, you go for it.
All right. So I definitely look at things maybe closer to the way Nava does, as opposed to you, Will. I look at dark side things as sort of the evil way to get things done. So two groups of people might want to rule the galaxy, and one will kill everybody in their way, and one will make peace deals with everyone in their way. Um, we don't hopefully we don't have to kill anybody to get the results we want on Amazon, but in general, there are ways to get things done. And as an ad agency, I have to say that I very strictly stay on the light side of things
Mhm.
because I do not ever want to be the person responsible for that your account has been suspended banner that comes across the top. I
Mhm.
cannot be that person. That said, there are things which dance in the middle. There are things which are dark side, but everyone does. And I am aware of them. I'm pretty sure some of the people I work with do those things. but I very much will never advocate for a thing that's against Amazon's rules. It's just a lot of people do it, but the day they get caught is the day 2 years of dancing around was not worth the dancing.
Yeah. You cut off that revenue source. And that's a really good point, Abe. And for the sake of this call, we are strictly on the light side. We got a lot of Jedis here and not a lot of Palatines. So I'm with you. Alexi, anything to add?
Not really. Just in terms of, I think Amazon changes like what categories are allowed, whether it's being advertised or even being sold on Amazon, and that will just happen out of the blue. We had a client that Amazon decided on December 23rd that they no longer could sell their product on Amazon, and it was now a banned product. And you wake up to that and you're like, okay, that's where we're at. And so you try to, see if there's any workaround, and then there's not. And so then you can't, if your product's taken down, you can't advertise. And there's lines that we have to say, like, we can do these gray things. And then once we've done those, like, we can't do anything else. Because we can't put our partnership with Amazon in jeopardy. So I think on that end, like, we're all kind of staying on the light side to stay in good graces with Amazon.
Yeah, I like that. Awesome. This was really interesting. And I'll push this next question towards you, Alexi. So I'm gonna put you on the spot. But how do you stay on target as Amazon's algorithms shift like an unpredictable force storm?
Yeah. So I think the biggest area that I work with a lot of our brands is setting up different goals for different product lines. So the better segmentation that you can have in your ad strategy, and having, separating your SKUs or ASINs, however you want to call it. Everybody is very strong about calling it one or the other. But staying, keeping all of those ASINs together, each ASIN in their own campaign, so that you can have that better control and segment them out. And then keeping, goals. If you have a bigger margin on a product, setting more, aggressive goals for that product, versus you might not be able to, be as aggressive with a product that only has a 20% profit margin versus these items with 40 to 50%. So for us, that's a huge tactic that we use, of just trying to set up goals for each product line that makes the most sense. And then as a collective, making sure that profitability is there. But because the rules change and different products have better search during different seasons, it's important to segment out and just have those individual goals.
That's a really solid point. Segmentation. I really think segmentation, it's key to advertising. It helps with relevancy. And to your point, seasonality, fluctuations, Amazon's changing all the time. So it's really good to be able to kind of have that level of control within the account. And a lot of that's done through just having things really tight and segmented. Abe, how about you on your end? How do you guys handle algorithmic changes, and how do you guys keep the force aligned?
So we don't typically look at things in a global way like that. What we typically try to do is get clarity on what a brand's goals are. And the more clearly we know what a brand's goals are, the more we can do all the pieces of what's needed to get them there. If we know that a brand has a certain margin they need to hit, that will dictate one set of rules, and that'll evolve. If we know that a brand needs to hit a certain number of units per month for a product, that will dictate us a different number of things. It's interesting because I had a really, really clear example of this with a brand that happened maybe 6 weeks ago. So this is a brand that does probably $18 million a year on Amazon. It's a good sized brand. And mid-March, the owner of the brand tells me, Abe, I don't think we're selling enough. So I looked at the account, and every single week they were up between 15 and 35% over the year before, which is tremendous on its own. So I'm like, what do I do with this? The first question I said is, where do you want to be? How much do you actually want to sell? He says, let me get back to you. 2 days later, he comes back to me. He says, I want to sell 80% more than last year.
Wow.
And I said, I thought about that for a day myself. And then I came back to him and I said, all right, well, the first question is very simple. Do you have enough inventory to sell 80% more? Because 80% more against 20 million in sales is another $1.6 million in sales. You need the wholesale value of goods against that 1.6 million or 16 million. And he says, yes, we have it. I'm like, all right, we need to make a plan to start sending in approximately double the amount of goods you do now. And with the same strategies that we were applying the week before, when he increased the amount of inventory he had by double, his sales went up by nearly double. So that is a situation in which understanding clearly what they wanted, more is not enough, and understanding clearly what's needed to get there and doing the things directly leads to the sales and business. And that's like a nice clean example of that. Like it's a clean and dramatic example, but it plays out in a million ways on a smaller scale all the time. And one of the first things we do when we start working with a brand is just to spend a good amount of time to understand both where they are and where they want to be on a micro level. And that dictates everything. And it's different things to do each time.
That's a really good point. And different each business. So understanding what your clients and the brands are looking for dictates kind of the strategy. And the first example, extreme 80, that's a lot of growth over a short time, but it makes sense that the recommendations and the strategy would be a lot different than somebody who's like, hey, I just want to be more profitable. And that's obviously going to look different depending on the products and the categories. Really good
Yep.
point, Abe. How about you, Nava? Anything else to add? How do you work around Amazon algorithmic changes and keep the force aligned?
So both Abe and Alexi said pretty much everything I could say on a big strategy level. So I'll throw just one little pog on top. I'm gonna like keep digging in for like these little references. Um, One of the things I have found with pretty much every ad platform is that help documentation almost always lags behind API and technical documentation. So this is not me telling you go read and study every little technical document out there. You don't have time for that. Like you're paying other people for that, or you're managing accounts. You don't have time to do all that. But I would see if you can carve out at least once a month, 20 minutes to scan through, is there anything new in the API documentation and the technical documentation? And the reason I advise that is because the engineers almost always are going to have a more aggressive publishing schedule than customer marketing or product marketing. So even though the product marketing, customer marketing are doing an exceptional job of keeping up, they're doing amazing and they've made lots of improvements. It is just an objective fact that the API documentation will give you more insight into what's coming and where it's going than the others. The other thing I'll throw out there is that pretty much every ad platform, Google, Microsoft, Meta, LinkedIn, Pinterest, like TikTok, like, all of them are leaning very heavily away from segmentation. This doesn't mean that segmentation can't still exist and can't still win 100% for you, but it is worth knowing what the ad platforms are pushing towards and how you are going to need to make segmentation work in the new rules of engagement for all these different platforms. So, for example, where I might have given an account structure an F right off the bat, if it wasn't segmented, I now am looking at what are the bottom line achievements. So, I guess that this is a long way of saying don't hold the habit of how you used to do account work in your mind. Be open to change and know that the ad platforms are trying to push away from segmentation, even if that's what's comfortable and what's delivered for you in the past.
Nava, that's really, really solid. I like to hear you kind of giving away one of my secrets is we're in the I get emails from Amazon advertising. I'm sure the rest of you guys do, and I get the monthly API updates. And if you check Amazon.science, you can get a lot of SEO algorithmic updates. And generally you could catch them before it shows up in Amazon's news and RSS feed or before a lot of I don't know, mainstream Amazon influencers are even talking about it. So that is some really solid tips. And all this is really great from, segmentating, where to find that information, the API docs, and then understanding what your customer goals are. I had a couple questions come in and I'm gonna, Nava, thanks for answering one of them. I'm just gonna read it out so everybody can hear it before I clear it. But what are some gray strategies that you implement in your advertising? And Nava stated that She loved the gray Jedi question. She'd look across channel integration to think Microsoft rebate coupons as an example, which
Yeah, and
is
I'll just give a little bit of clarification there. So Microsoft is currently running a pilot. You can raise your hand, get into the pilot, and it will allow you to offer coupons to people buying on Amazon to get a rebate for purchasing the product. So it's actually a Microsoft ad type that integrates with Amazon, integrates with Walmart, but we're talking about Amazon, so we're gonna stick with Amazon. Um, you will see the rebate coupon offered once you land on the product page. So it's in addition to Amazon coupons. So you can say you're like, I don't know how I feel about the Amazon coupons. Do I want to test letting Microsoft do like a rebate offer? It's kind of interesting. It's still in its pilot mode, so there's still time to give feedback. That's the number one thing I'm suggesting my Amazon advertisers to test. Because sometimes the Amazon coupon type is expensive clicks that don't actually yield the purchase.
Mhm.
And they
Whereas
got more expensive.
yeah, exactly. So that's my gray Jedi trick is pulling the other networks.
That's cool. That's smart. And Amazon always wants that external traffic. The second question came in, and Abe, I think, oh, it is for you. It even says Abe in the question. I'm skim reading. Abe, how did, and back to your story, how did this scale look like in the account health? Did the KPIs raise in this period, and were they still profitable?
So let's see. In general, everything went pretty well. With regards to account health, I didn't micromanage the account health numbers. From my end, account health to me only has two numbers, acceptable and problem. So as long as it is acceptable, I don't micromanage whether it's outstanding or good enough. So they were always good. It never ever became anywhere near a problem. As far as profitability, yes, no storage fees did not go up dramatically. The big key here is that our sell-through rate stayed the same, and that was the thing we were anticipating, and that was the thing we were going to test for, was to say, okay, if we have on average 200 units a day, and that's obviously not the number, but if on average you have 200 units a day in stock, how many units could you be expected to sell? And it's not a number that most brands look at, but it is a number to understand in a business which is relatively consistent. And if you know that number, if you check it monthly or quarterly, you can observe shifts. I started with the premise that if we're working with a steady sell-through rate, increasing inventory and maintaining that sell-through rate gives us our larger number. And we actually did 2 years of analysis before coming to that number, by the way. I wanted to make sure that over the course of the year, inventory on average matched a sell-through on average. And it is what we saw pretty consistently. So I had confidence giving them that. There's definitely details that sit under the story, as you can imagine. But the shortest answer is, knock on wood, everything went as we would have wanted it to. It's not always the case. A lot of times course corrections are needed, and that's part of the work also. There are just as many stories of the opposite of desired result happening, but you have to roll with each of them. You have to get through that moment and get to the next peak that you can get to.
The force is strong with you, Abe. I'll take that. And from an operational perspective, because we do a lot of the operations, what we have found is that if you can have at least 60 days of inventory available, it improves conversion rates. And how does it improve conversion rates? It's because your products are spread more nationally. So you're in more places where people are shopping. You're more likely to get same day, 1 day, 2 day prime shipping. Where if you had less than 60 days, that's kind of like what we do as the key number, then you'll have longer lead times, which we know that people are less patient. So if they can get it quicker, they're going to choose a competitor, even if the price is comparable or a little more expensive. So it's really interesting. You have the sell-through aspect of that, and we just look at it from just days available inventory, but it's pretty much the same thing. We're going to jump into the next section, solutions, mastering the ad force. And I'm going to attempt to do a very poor Yoda impression right here, so no judging. But as Yoda said, Do or do not. This is no try. I butchered that. Do or do not. There is no try. So, how do you do smart advertising in today's landscape? So, I'm going to pose this to our panel. How do you segment campaigns to avoid falling into the trap of spreading your budgets way too thin? And anybody who wants to jump in, or I can start calling people.
I can take a crack at this. So there's really, from my perspective at least, there's a very straightforward answer to this. Step one is map out every ad type that you want to apply to a product. Amazon has match types. Uh, Amazon has match types. Amazon has ad types. Amazon has placement types. Map out exactly what you want to have involved for this product. And then the second thing you do is you prioritize. You expect certain amounts of sales from ad types. You expect certain amounts of performance from ad types. Conquesting a competitor's brand name is almost always expected to give you worse performance than the keyword which matches your SKU exactly. So we have different expectations. The things which we expect us to get the most sales, get the biggest piece of the budget on day one. And when the budget is not infinite, we will very often cut entire ads out. We will say that, okay, the fullest build out will have 28 ad campaigns. I'm only starting with 6. 22 are not for day one. And as each one grows and gives us more budget, the rest gets built out over time.
For an account that, let's just say, is on the platform, it's got sales, so it's not a launch. You got consistent products. Do you have a ratio you typically use in terms of sponsored products for sponsored display versus DSP, for example? Any types like percentages if we were in a conversation and we're just talking generalities?
So the general performance numbers, the most common ones, is that spend about 80% plus goes to sponsored products, and then the other 20% is split between sponsored brand and sponsored display, more towards brand. Sales, 90% plus ends up with sponsored product, and the other 10% splits to the other two. And over time, as an account or as a product get larger, sponsored display can shift over to DSP as the more granular parts are needed. And then once you have good enough traffic with DSP, you'll want to put more money into it, which makes it a bigger piece of your picture. There is a lot of challenges around measuring how effective DSP is. So that last piece I described is really like somewhat down the road for almost everybody, but those are the general breakdowns I see.
Really solid. Alexi, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think in terms of just when you're setting up your campaigns, I think going back to just making sure that you're aligned on what the overall goal is for the brand as well as what the margins are for each of those product lines. And then, a lot of our brands right now, the budgets are tight. They don't have a lot of money to spend because they're having to spend more on their cogs and things like that. And we don't know what things are going to look like in a couple months. So you're seeing a lot of budgets get shrunk and pulled back over the last month. And, with still the same hope of the same amount of sales coming in with spending less. So something that I utilize a lot is day parting. Certain days are stronger for brands depending on the type of product they sell. Do they sell better during the weekdays or Sundays? Always their spike. So we need more budget on those days. And then kind of just trying to not spend much, lower those bids in the middle of the night. So you're not overpaying. Just trying to think 2 steps above, ahead in where does it make sense to spend the budget? Because if you say, hey, this is the $20 budget, like you might spend that before 6 a.m., on that product because it's gotten the clicks. So just trying to day part to when you get the busiest time and the most, people that tend to purchase your product to have the most lucrative budget during those hours.
That's a really solid. We love day parting too, but I know, for example, you can't do it directly on the sponsored products or the advertising console. Do you guys use the software? Do you have like macros? How do you guys handle day parting?
Yeah, so we work with IntentWise,
Hmm,
is the software that we use to
nice.
do day parting. And so it'll tell us like the last 2 weeks, the heat map of the data points and stuff, and then trying to just set different we have the campaign level budgets, but then some clients, I really don't like using the sponsor product like cap across the board,
Hmm,
because when that goes out, everything shuts down. But for some brands, that's just when their budget is tight and that's what it is. You have to
yeah.
use it. Um, and so we use IntentWise to help with our day parting. I know Amazon's talked about adding it directly in the console, and
One day.
I'm sure it's gonna get there one day, but we like to use IntentWise.
Yeah, Serena has some really good software, so I'd highly recommend it. And same thing with the budget guide. What I hate about it is like the campaigns that aren't always the best performing will spend the most, and it doesn't mean you're going to get the best ROI. So solid with the day parting. Now, any closing thoughts before we answer some of these questions that are coming in?
I'm going to shamelessly plug Optimizer that a lot of what I would say you could do in the tool as well. And this goes to the API piece. The more you're comfortable using APIs to process data from
Mm,
Amazon, whether into your own dashboard or there's tools like Cursor that will let you actually build your own AI tool to process these things. So it's maybe a little bit cheaper than going with a vendor. Last bit of shamelessly plugging Optimizer. But the where Alexa, you were really speaking to my heart is there are if this then rules that you should always think about for your account. So if you know that your best times are say 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., there should be rules in place forcing your budget to be spent during those times. Same thing with audiences, that your audience targeting is really really tuned in. What I don't think enough people think about is that Amazon ultimately has some of the best audiences of any of the ad platforms. And I don't think enough people actually lean in and leverage the audiences nearly as much as they should. So yes, the keyword targeting is great. And yes, we can have really great bid management, but ultimately where you can get really creative and do some really clever things is with the audience targeting, the product targeting, the ratings targeting, all those different pieces. And yes, Amazon isn't as cool as everybody else with exclusions. Like they should catch up on exclusions, but the targeting is amazing. So if there's one thing that wasn't mentioned already, it's the audience targeting and really investing that time in audience targeting.
Beautiful, well said. Awesome. But I'm going to jump to some of our attendee questions. We're getting a few rolling in. So the first one, and feel free to jump in on whoever thinks they have the best answer, and I can always go around. What are your thoughts about double dipping campaigns? And I'm assuming by double dipping, it's maybe having the same keyword or audience type in multiple campaigns to kind of capitalize this. I've heard this from other advertisers. I'll let you guys state your opinion before I state mine.
I'll throw something out there that is I might get debated. We'll see. Um, if you're not if you're siloing your campaigns, as in they are not in competing auctions, I think it's perfectly fine. The moment you're in competing auctions, that's driving up your average CPC. So if you're prepared to pay the price for it and you're prepared to deal with the policy questions, which personally I'm not, have fun. But I pretty firmly believe that so long as you've siloed your auctions in some way, whether that's the time you're serving, whether that's the market you're targeting, whether that's the different audiences, what have you, um, I think it's perfectly fine. But I'm really interested to see what the other folks have to say.
Abe or Lexi?
I,
Oh
I mean, I
boy.
think to an extent, you're always going to have some overlap. Um, something that I really like to set up just across the board so that, even if you have a low budget, keeping a we call them status checker campaigns. So like super low auto bid campaign where every product in your catalog is in that campaign for 20 cents or less. You'll make a sale here and there. You might land in a placement, make some sales. That of course is going to overlap to those products that are in the other auto campaign, or you've taken a search term out of an auto campaign and put it in a manual. But I don't want to see, my team negate every search term that comes through the auto, put it in the auto once they've switched it to the manual, because then you're cutting, you could be cutting off traffic to some of the extended or long tail keywords and things like that. So you're going to have some overlap. I think some overlap is needed. It's just being mindful of like, let's not have 4 auto campaigns doing the same thing and, a couple manuals going after the same. You don't need exact phrase and broad of a keyword in every single, campaign. Let's pick a few. So I think that's where it's a little mixed. And I think in the past there were some schools of thought of like, when you added a search term, you had to add the exact in the exact campaign, the phrase and the phrase, and the broad and the broad, and you needed to put it in all 3 places. When really you don't. You just have the exact and then go after the broad, maybe with broad match modifiers. So
Get a light. Anything to add, Abe?
Boy, I gotta say, maybe I have some catching up to do because I am actually sort of traditional in this sense. We typically like do our keyword research and our product understanding to get our intentional targets. When we have our intentional targets, we do put them in all match types because Amazon does treat each of them differently, and Amazon does put them in different places. We don't know what words a shopper is going to add onto the beginning or end of a phrase we think is relevant. We don't know when there is a slightly alternative version of a phrase we think is going to be relevant. So each of those has a usefulness. And the same thing when it comes to graduating terms. When a term starts in auto and we discover it, we don't take it out of its origin spot ever. We find that if Amazon likes a thing in a spot, it will typically continue to like the thing in the spot. So we don't overthink it. When it comes to double dipping, there's a bunch of different ways to describe it. Sometimes you might say whether it's a keyword being applied to 2 products. Sometimes you might want to say it's a keyword for 1 product, but with 2 different match types. Sometimes you might want to say it's a keyword with the same match type 2 times for a thing with high bid and low bid. There's like a bunch of ways to define double dipping. I don't overthink it. I only look for an issue when there is an issue. When there's a problem, we're not hitting our goals, we microanalyze to find out what's happening. Aside from that, the goals are the goals, and the process is subservient to the goal. That's it. If I can hit that goal with 1 campaign, I'll be very happy to hit it with 1 campaign. I do not need to overthink it with all 29. So
that's very true.
I try not to worry about a technicality like double dipping too much until the moment it's an issue. Then yes, of course, there are cleanups that can be done in a bloated situation, but the key is to be clean in the first place.
Mm-hmm. I lean towards, I think everybody to some degree, and I agree with Abe and how you need to have the different match types. Alexi, what I like about the auto types is you could get some pretty expensive keywords a little cheaper versus an exact campaign when it's in the auto. And kind of what you said, Abe, if it's not broken, why fix it? So like generally we won't negate keywords in auto campaigns. If they're working, write it out. So these are some really solid insights. We got 5 questions lined up, so they're peppered in. So I think maybe one person will respond to these just so we can get them going. And if anybody has anything to add, feel free. But we have about 15 minutes left. I do want to ask a couple more questions, but I definitely want to get to our audience questions. So from Dell, for beauty brands / categories, what's your framework for analyzing underperforming campaigns? Do you optimize based on placements, time of day, or audience behavior?
Alexi,
And it could be any category, really.
Yeah, if it's going to be a beauty question, I'll let somebody else take it because the truth is, beauty is actually its own weird universe of performance. There are actually entire agencies that only focus on beauty and will not touch any other category. We have some beauty brands, but I would not say I'm one of those ultra laser beam focused. I treat our beauty brands with best practices, and they generally work well, but I couldn't give you a beauty specific answer there.
Yeah, we've got a handful of beauty brands that we work with, and we find that for the biggest like placement and performance in the audiences, it tends, of course, tends to be more, more expensive. But for beauty brands, the sponsor brand and showing up at that top of search with
Mm.
your images and having that upscale look goes a lot. It goes far in every category. But the beauty category, if like your, shampoo or makeup or whatever, like you really have to catch the eye on the product detail page. I mean, on the not on the product detail page, on the search. Like when you search, you've got to see that image. You got to say, oh, I want my hair to look like that.
Mhm.
Like that's those pieces draw in, I feel like even more in the beauty category. And so you need a partner that's going to look at that entire funnel with you. And beauty tends to be a more expensive category to focus in on and, than some of the other niche categories. So I think for us, that's something we focus a lot on is top of funnel for the beauty and building that. If you don't have a good brand with your beauty products, it's pretty detrimental if you don't have that brand presence.
Well said, Alexi. And you're right, very visual. Nava, do you have anything to add?
It's trying to be good where we get one person
Oh,
response.
that's right.
Well, no, but no, the one thing I will say, which is something that you should take heart, beauty products and the beauty vertical, at least on the Google and Meta side, have seen dramatic increases in CPCs. And I have a feeling that part of that is due to some of the regulatory pressures, because there's more control around what our kids are being exposed to, how are we targeting, things like that. So when we think about Amazon and we think about the Amazon specific beauty vertical, it is important to remember that Amazon is not nearly as in the spotlight for critiques as these other players. So, what you may be feeling if you're feeling friction or if you're feeling changes in performance is some of the Google and Meta folks coming for respite through Amazon as opposed to it just being an Amazon specific ecosystem thing. So, it's really the only thing to add on top of Alexi's very, very clever answer.
Very cool. We guys are on it, and I like that. Jumping on to the next question, and the force is telling me Abe might want to answer this one, but you're seeing good click-through rate but low conversion rates. What are 5 possible reasons, and how would you test/fix them?
Okay, so when I saw this question in the queue, I immediately I had a bunch of thoughts, but to break it down, there is no 5 possible reasons. There's only 2 possible reasons why you're getting high click-through rate and low conversions. It's just two. Reason number one is once the shopper is on your page, your content is not doing a good enough job of convincing them to put it in the cart and buy it. That's issue reason number one. And reason number two, your product is perfectly fine from a conversion rate, but competing advertisements on your page are offering something even a little bit better to steal that sale away. It's one or it's two. And the fixes are also straightforward. Number one, upgrade your content. Number two, pack all of the ad spots with your own variations. That's it. There's one and two. But yeah, it's really as simple of an answer as that.
I like that. And
I think.
no, I think you're right on. And just a quick hack, you guys definitely check out PickFu. It's a split testing software. We use them to test how we look on search and also how we're converting compared to some competitors. So it's a great way to get data and make data informed decisions before you implement into Amazon. And really solid advice, Abe. Jumping on to the next question. If Amazon changes the layout of search results, i.e., i.e., pushes organic listings down, how does that affect your ad strategy? Nava.
So my hand went up because I deal with this with every single ad platform that I get to play in. So it's kind of the optimizer perspective. We get to play with everybody, not just Amazon. So a couple of things to think about with layouts. Number one, it should not dramatically affect the day-to-day of your business. It just should not. What should be impacted is whether the percentage of budget is going towards top of funnel sorts of campaigns or bottom of funnel campaigns. Ultimately, your organic content is going to be your through line and that consistent support and bulwark against all the different fluctuations. So Amazon will be testing new ad types all of the time. You do not want to like a mad pie just go, oh, that looks shiny, that looks shiny, that looks shiny, and then ultimately you're stuck and you got nothing. Like I was about to do the mummy reference of getting like the wall shut on, but we're not in a mummy webinar, so I'll hold
Save
on,
that for the
even
next
though
one.
my background it looks like it. But the main reason why I also wanted this question is that we are actually in a coming back to the basics or the original. So I've been in digital marketing uh over 15 years. I've seen search result pages change drastically. And it's really interesting that we're coming back to kind of the original layouts, the original styles, the original kind of strategies. So don't rock your strategy world with your ads. Be really solid on your organic because you can always move dollars around a little bit. Like the core of your structure should remain the same on the ad side. It's the organic content that you really want to make sure is solid.
That's well said, and 100% agree. SEO in the long run is going to be a lot less expensive than advertising, of course. Next question, and Alexi, if you're feeling it, I'll push this your way. But how do you scale your high-selling product that was removed by any violation? So I'm assuming this attendee had a product that was selling real well, taken down for whatever reason, compliance, and now they're bringing it back up. How do they get sales back to where it was? Do you just dump a bunch of money on it, or is there anything else tactical we should be thinking about?
Yeah, I think it's tough because it does take anytime you get a product taken for a violation or you run out of stock, which is almost just as bad as a violation. It can take a few weeks to get that traction back to even close to what it was. A tactic that we have used because it happens a lot in supplements categories and things, or they've decided something's a pesticide and it's not, and you got to try to fight the case and it comes back up. So what we'll run, we may run a sale price for a little bit or a coupon so that we can try to show up and have that slash through if you can get the lowest price in the last 90 days and get that big nice red X across your product that you can see when in the search. That's something we try to do. And then there's two different schools of thought when it comes to ads, and I'd be curious, Abe, for your opinion. I've had people say when a product gets taken down, you should launch all new ads, like take the same stuff, but launch the new campaigns because there's like that juice period. Others say just turn back on, let the old ones that had the historical data continue to run. I'd be curious, Abe, which of those do you tend to do? Because I've seen success with both. So I'm always curious what other people think or if there really is no difference.
So it probably depends on two things. We do both also. It depends on number one, how long the product was down. If the product is down for a day or a week, you just turn ads back on. If the product is down for months, then we turn them back on, but see what the initial results are like. If the initial results are like zero, like worse than the day one, it means those ads have no more. Amazon has no more interest in those ads, and we just relaunch new ones. But yeah, it's factor number one and factor number two lead to what to do.
Beautiful. Well said. And jumping on, one last question. So how do you approach bidding strategies when launching in highly competitive niches like supplements and electronics?
Should I poke around with this one?
Yeah, let's
I
do
mean,
it.
if you're not gonna, I will, but I'd rather you poke around first.
Yeah, so supplements is really its own universe. It's one in which margins are typically very high, and they are very high because you will need a lot of your margin to put into marketing. So that's number one. Number two is you also need to figure in lifetime value. So you really need to invest in getting a shopper into your ecosystem, and you need to invest into having a product that is good enough to get several purchases out of order number one. So all the strategies come down to is number one, being aggressively in front of the shopper to capture that first order. And the reality is that off Amazon marketing is vital when it comes to supplements. In a world where for most supplement types there is a very entrenched top two rows of people, the only way you're going to break in is with marketing and visibility that has nothing to do with those top two rows, which is going to be off Amazon. Electronics is different. Electronics is something where you have more levers to pull, depending on the category of electronics. But electronics is a place where you can position yourself differently. So if you have a unique offering, if you have really good marketing to make yourself look different, you can pull the lever of price and people will take a flyer on your product. Those are all levers you can pull, which don't really, they will convince shoppers to take your product. So you can be aggressive. You don't even necessarily need to be as aggressive.
Anything to add, Nava?
Yeah. Remember that Amazon's smart bidding is in its infancy. That manual is still going to probably be the safest bet. So if you're in a highly competitive industry, I would not do Amazon's smart bidding or their auto bidding. It took the other ad platforms a really long time to get it anywhere decent. And I will say that Amazon is not learning from the other ad platforms' mistakes of the conversion threshold. So just for people's knowledge, historically, you would need 15 conversions on other ad platforms to leverage their smart bidding. That has been proven by study after study after study to be just flat out incorrect. You need at least 50 conversions in a 30-day period in order to be useful. Amazon is starting with the 10 threshold in a 30-day period, which is bonkers to me. So, be mindful that as much as Amazon's auto bidding and smart bidding is super cool, and I'm super excited by the direction it's going. It seems like it's super advertiser oriented and like it's trying to have us spend less, not more. It doesn't change the fact that there are still some kinks to be worked out. And if you lean into smart bidding in a competitive field, you cannot be upset or surprised when it eats your budget because the constraints weren't put on there.
Well said. I don't like to trust Amazon with my money, that's for sure. It's giving the casino your credit cards. But this was really great, guys. We got about 2 minutes, so my audience, we have time for one more question. So feel free to drop any questions in, and I'm gonna go around real quick. If you guys could tell the audience where they can find you if they wanted to reach out. Nava, you can go first.
Hey everybody, I am the Ask the PPC on Search Engine Journal. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Blue Sky. Optimizer does town halls every Wednesday. And yeah, just if you have questions or if you need help with anything, or if you want to talk about Star Wars or Magic the Gathering or like any bit of geekery or metal music, hit me up. I'm happy to help.
Awesome. Thanks, Nava. How about you, Lexi?
Yeah, you can reach me just like Nava. You can reach me on LinkedIn, Alexi Bell, and then also my email is Alexi at ao2management.com. So either of those work, but LinkedIn is probably the easiest one to remember. So
Awesome. Thanks, Lexi. How about you, Abe?
Yeah, just like the ladies, LinkedIn is the place where we do business. So you can find me at Abe Shamali. I try to be responsive there, despite all the people trying to offer me a call services.
Yeah.
And the other place to find me is, of course, at my website, which is xpstrategy.com. There are contact us forms, and we try to be responsive there as well.
Beautiful. Yeah, Nava, you raised your hand.
I misclicked. I was trying
Oh,
to get into the Q&A.
all
I
good,
thought I
all
saw a
good.
question there. It looked a good fun question.
Yeah, we got a good last question to end on. Real quick, I'm Will Hare. You can find me at on LinkedIn like everybody else. Will Hare, like on your head with an E. And on that note, what's the riskiest PPC move you've made that paid off, and why did it work? We'll go around and we'll end with this question.
The
Removing
riskiest.
negatives.
Oh,
Oh,
okay. And how did it work out? Oh, why did it
Uh,
work?
so negatives were a crutch for a really long time, and we removed them just as like, let's see, and we can always add them back. And it turned into like 30-40% improvement product dependent on ROAS. So
Wow.
test removing negatives just to make sure that you don't have the wrong ones in there and that you're not getting in the way of your own success.
Test.
Yeah,
Alexa, you ready?
yeah, similar sense. Because there's just so much gets put in the back end of campaigns, and if somebody else made the campaigns structure, sometimes it is good to just start over because you don't
Mm,
know what historically, like they did bid adjustments, multiple times a day, and there was all these negatives, and there's so much lack of control in old campaigns. There's good things about keeping that velocity, but I'd say one of the riskiest moves I've made is just totally doing like restructuring the whole account,
mm,
and getting rid of those old campaigns while you boost the new ones. And while there is that weird, middle ground in between where you just don't know how it's going to go, I'm really firm believer in building the foundation of the house strong in
mhm.
order to scale and grow. And if you're coming into a messy home and there's mold on the walls, like sometimes you got to get back to the studs in order for it to work. So it takes
Well
a lot of
said,
trust.
Lexi. Well said. I like the analogy too. Abe, last but not least.
Yeah, the most risky thing I've done, and that we actually do it every once in a while, is there are times where performance for a keyword is not good, and we will actually raise bids instead of lowering them because we suspect that the bids might be too low, and raising them will get extra visibility that should turn into sales. It does not always work. There's probably a reason why the bids were low in the first place, but every once in a while it does pay off because the visibility was just what a product needed.
Beautiful. Well said. Well, you guys heard it here first. I would like to thank all our panelists for coming in theme, dressed with your Star Wars gear. We got helmets, we got Obi-Wan, we got cool T-shirts. So thank you everybody for joining. I hope our audience took a lot from it. You guys will get an email. It'll have the webinar link, and we'll have all our panelists' information. Thanks for joining. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys.